I'm done making behavioral science videos. I'm sorry to all of my fans who watch my channel just to watch my behavioral science content. But the truth of the matter is, it's become harder and harder for me to get up here, turn on my camera, and talk to you guys as if I feel confident in the insights that I'm teaching. I started learning behavioral science when I was just 16 years old. And for the last 9 years, I have been working tirelessly to learn more about this field. So much so, in fact, that for me, behavioral science has, or at least was, an inherent part of my identity. I was Pete, the behavioral scientist, was how I defined myself. But after 9 years of learning, thousands of pounds spent on formal education in the field, and even more thousands of hours learning and studying the academic literature, I'm left uncertain and unconfident in anything that I'm trying to teach here anymore. As long-term viewers of this channel will know, during the day, I actually work in a behavioral science team. And just this week, one of my colleagues was sharing a trial that they did in their previous job where they were testing different messaging interventions based on behavioral science. It was a very simple trial. There were 3 different text messages, a control, a gain frame, and a loss frame. If you don't know what that means, essentially this is testing the concept of loss aversion. The idea that people feel the pain of losing more than the pleasure of gains. Essentially in this trial there was a text message that was framed in terms of gains, what the customer stood to gain from engaging in this behavior, and another text message that talked about the same behavior but in terms of what the customer stood to lose by not doing this. So of course when it comes to behavioral science, all of us assumed that the one that was a loss frame would perform the best. After all, loss aversion is one of the most fundamental and famous principles in all of behavioral science. It is arguably the most ubiquitous, most widely understood, widely accepted principle in all of social psychology. And yet, when it came to his applied trial, it was actually the gain frame that outperformed the loss frame. Shortly afterwards, another colleague of mine posted a link to a meta-analysis that was done on loss aversion that showed that loss aversion doesn't seem to replicate very well, and that the effects of loss aversion are largely overblown. So when fundamental concepts in the field like loss aversion are called into question, as well as many high-profile researchers who are the ones who invented many of these well-known principles that I would talk about so confidently on this channel, how can I get up here, turn on my camera and talk to you guys and make videos about something which I don't even trust myself? Now, I'm not saying that all behavioral science research is bogus. I think probably about 50% of it is legitimate. But the problem is when I'm reading any behavioral science research, any particular paper or article or applied trial that was done in the real world, it is impossible for me to know which 50% I'm reading. It's a flip of a coin whether what I'm reading would actually replicate in another scenario. Now, at work, we can get around this by testing things rigorously with data. We come up with hypotheses and we do data analysis in order to verify them. So we're not just making recommendations based off the literature alone. But here on YouTube, that's not how things work. I don't go and run research experiments before I make every YouTube video. Instead, what I do is I read academic literature and then I feed that back to you guys and present it in a more digestible way. But when I don't trust the academic literature I'm reading, I'm not sure that I want to relay it to you guys because perhaps I'm spreading just false information. So what started out 9 years ago as an overwhelming amount of optimism and enthusiasm for behavioral science has slowly been chipped away to the point where now I'm just left feeling frustrated and confused. How could I have spent so many years of my life, so much of my identity tied into a subject, and so many thousands of pounds of student loans spent learning an academic literature which isn't trustworthy? How is it that I was allowed to invest all of these resources into a system that was built on such shaky grounds? Why is it that poor research was celebrated and highly cited, and poor researchers who have bad academic practices were promoted to very high positions of power? The more I learn about this subject and the more I learn about the academic system, the more broken I realize it is. The people who are bad actors, cheaters, and liars are the ones who are most handsomely rewarded by the system, while the honest researchers, the young people who are trying to fix the system, are shut down and pushed to the shadows. For me now, the glimmer and shine of behavioral science has well and truly faded, and what I'm left with is a deep frustration and a roaring desire to expose the flaws of the academic system and hopefully fix it as well. So going forward, that's going to be the direction of this channel. I'm no longer a behavioral science explainer channel. Instead, I want to talk about academia. Now, in all likelihood, I will end up talking a lot about behavioral scientists when discussing this topic, because after all, that's the field that I've specialized in for so many years, and therefore part of academia which I know the most about. But I'll also be making videos about academics who work in other sciences and industries as well. I'll talk about physics, medicine, chemistry, and others. Wherever there is a story or a case study worth sharing, that's what I'm going to be making videos about. Now, I'll admit it's surprising and weird that I found myself in this position. It's not what I intended started when I started this channel, and admittedly I'm probably not the most qualified person to talk on these topics. After all, I'm not a published author, I've never published a scientific paper in a journal. I do have a degree, I do have a master's degree, and I've spent years applying academic research in the world of industry, but I'm not a published author. So for all of these videos, I'm going to have to do a lot of desk research, I'm going to have to talk to many people who are experts in this field, and hopefully through a combination of different sources, I can learn the things that I'm yet to know. But I'm very privileged to have this large platform to talk about this vitally important topic in society, which I feel like is grossly undercovered. And in many ways, it's actually a blessing that I'm not part of the academic system. I'm not vying for tenure at Harvard or Stanford or anywhere else. I have my own independent career, which is largely independent of the academic system. So as a result of that, I can come on here and really just speak my mind. I'm not worried about offending somebody who maybe is going to be responsible for the future of my career or the future of my income. I'm totally independent of that, which gives me a lot of creative freedom in what I can say here on the channel. So once again, I just want to say sorry to my loyal behavioral science fans. I've spent the last 3 years making hundreds of videos explaining behavioral science, and those videos will stay on my channel. They're not going anywhere if you want to go back to them and reference them at any point. But going forward, this is the direction that I'm taking, and I hope that you can get on board with that. Thank you guys so much for your support and subscribership. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the future of this channel. Till then, bye-bye.